Welcome to the Battlefield Show. I'm your host, Sage Goodwin, and as always, I'm joined by Sammy Boy. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Ready to talk and get into some nitty-gritty details into some Battlefield today. And today, we're going to be talking about some of the leaks or reports that have been going on around the shakeup inside of DICE and how they are going about addressing Battlefield and its franchise. So let's jump right in. This podcast is a production of Uplink Media Group. Uplink is a podcast network dedicated to highlighting the love and experience of gaming and pop culture. Check out our other shows, Star Wars Uplink and The Forge, the Halo Infinite podcast, as well as our YouTube channels for even deeper dives into Battlefield, Star Wars, and more. YouTube.com/Uplink podcast and StarWarsUplink.com. We're talking about it a little bit before we were like, oh crap, we should talk about this on the podcast. We were like, hey, we really thought that we'd get some specialist details around this time, right?
Yeah, that was my assumption. I thought there's kind of two things on the checklist for this month, or potentially three, because I guess the feedback loop, they kind of have like a part two. Mm-hmm. And that was the specialist feedback loop, and then obviously the May update. And I'm still confident we'll get the May update in the next, essentially it has to be the next 2 weeks. But yeah, it's a bit weird about the specialist stuff not really happening, because they did say with the last one for the maps that was the next thing they were going to be working on. And I think they even said like it was going to be pretty soon. They didn't even say like late May or anything. They said it was going to be within the next few weeks. So unless we potentially hear about it early next week, maybe. But yeah, it's just kind of weird, because the game sort of picked up a bit of traction now in terms of just within the community. Obviously, it's not like it's selling more or anything like that, but within the community, I think we're all a bit like, okay, that was a good update with 4.0, and we're like on the right track now. And then it seems like they've kind of slowed down a little bit. So still only halfway through May. There's still 2 weeks that they can do all that in. So it's not doomsday, but it's just definitely a little bit like, bit of a weird situation, I guess.
It is, and considering I'm trying to pull up the specific details of when we last heard from about the map feedback, but that was in when was that?
That would have been.
Is that March?
I think it was April.
It was April, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was like somewhere around the middle.
Yes, I'm pulling it up now. Yeah, March 31st.
Oh, it was March. Oh, what the hell? So, was that the first one or the second one?
This was the second one, because the first one was March 3rd. We got the first core feedback around the maps, and then the 31st, today we're following up on our core feedback maps discussion that we first shared with you earlier this month. So we went through the entirety of April without any communications around anything other than the update for Battlefield 2042 4.0. That was April 19th.
Damn, okay. Well, my timeline is all out of whack then. I didn't know I didn't think it was, like, that's essentially 6 weeks ago now. I did not think it was that long ago, but...
And
yeah,
I can't remember exactly, but didn't they say, like, in the next couple of weeks we're going to be talking about specialists or something?
I'm pretty sure.
Like, we had, like, a time frame to think of, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I remember recording my own video on it, and it said, I remember saying, like, that sounds promising that they're going to be talking about it pretty soon. So unless I just made that up in my own head, I'm not really sure, but I thought it was meant to be, like, if that was March 31st, then it would have been, the middle of April, I guess. I thought it was meant to be the middle of May, but obviously you know that my last month has been chaos, so I guess it kind of adds up that my timeline's still out of whack, but... Yeah.
Here it is. I found the quote. We'll return in a couple of weeks with a new topic for Chord Feedback, and that was on March 31st that we got this.
Interesting.
Dude, good gravy. I didn't realize.
Yeah, me either. I could have, honestly could have sworn that feedback loop was, the middle of April, not the end of
March.
I
was for sure that it was actually April, but no. Well, now we know of we're slowly but surely getting more data points for what time DICE actually thinks of when they say certain things. If they say soon, that means about a number of months. When they say a couple of weeks, it means over 6.
Yeah, so I guess we just like triple their timeline. So if we get it next week, that means next time they say a couple of weeks, that is 6 weeks. I think that's just the little equation we're going to have to do from here on out.
Immediately following this episode, I'm going to tweet out about this discovery.
I have seen a few people on Twitter actually sort of a bit antsy about it. I think I saw Lossie tweet like, "Where's this feedback loop?" So it's not just us. I think everyone's kind of like, "What's happening here?" And again, I don't think it's really like anything to worry about. It's more just like annoying. Like they've kind of gained some traction, and it's the one thing they said in what was it, like December or maybe early this year, when they said like feedback and communication is going to be our thing, and it kind of just hasn't been. Like they've really done
when we all looked at them like, I heard that before.
So it's very interesting to watch this all unfold, and that's kind of blown my mind. I didn't know it had been that long, so it's a bit of a bombshell for me, to be honest.
Oh my gosh, breaking minds. I didn't realize that either when I looked on the website. It's not even listed on their news section on battlefield.com. It's something I actually had to go to their Twitter account to find it. But down at the bottom it says we'll return in the next couple of weeks. Interesting. So we'll see. I mean, probably immediately following this episode they're going to release something.
Yeah, I bet they do it tomorrow.
Considering how consistently they've been announcing things on like Thursdays in the U.S.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it has been quite consistent the last several months that it'd be when we record on Thursday, we usually have something to talk about.
Yeah, that was my thought, sort of waking up this morning. The first thing I did was actually just check my phone for Twitter notifications, because I thought, if it was going to happen, it would be today. I kind of thought yesterday as well. That usually seems like it's either like this morning as we record or the day before. So yeah, I don't think we'll get it tomorrow, but who knows? Maybe we do. But very, very interesting to watch this all happen.
Yeah, definitely. And then kind of switching gears a little bit, maybe the reason why it's taking so long for more feedback around this and the core feedback loop to be posted is some of the news and reports that we've been getting around Battlefield 2042 and the development side of things. Bravo Intel posted this yesterday as we were recording. EA recently said for Battlefield 2042, the team is, quote, rethinking the development process from the ground up and will take the, quote, Vince Zampella respawn, end quote, approach to development.
Pretty much couldn't have said much that I would have enjoyed more than that. That's like anyone who's listened to this podcast since we've started. You and me are the biggest Vince Zampella simps in the whole world.
Oh yeah. Daddy Vince, save us.
So yeah, that's when I saw that the other day, that was a big positive. Obviously we need to see it, so I'm not going to get too excited, but we've both been saying it since they appointed him essentially the head of Battlefield, that there probably couldn't be many people in the whole world that would, are better for that position. And so, yeah, it does all, like you kind of alluded to before, it does kind of make sense if it's been, communication and that has been a bit slow, because obviously there has been some big internal changes, and I guess that kind of makes sense. I guess it doesn't really excuse it. It's still annoying as a fan base, but I guess it makes a little bit of sense. So, yeah, we'll have to just watch that play out.
Yeah, we'll see. This is what I tweeted this when I heard the news, is this is honestly the best course of action. If you compare Respawn to DICE, DICE looks like a perverted shadow of itself, while Respawn has been delivering live service in an innovative way since launch. And then pair that with the Star Wars stuff from Respawn, and the track record is very strong. And then if you look at I thought about phrasing it this way, but I was a little bit softer on Twitter. But it's like, if you look at DICE versus Respawn Respawn is like the golden child, and then DICE is the deformed, I don't know what it is, but it's just this glob of mass that's trying to figure out what it is in life.
Yeah.
And it's sad to see such a prolific and well-known studio fall so far. But honestly, it's a good thing ultimately because, as we've always said, competition in terms of commerce and these kinds of things is always good for the consumer. Like, anytime something fails and there is stronger competition from other companies, i.e. Respawn with Apex Legends, you've got Fortnite, you've got Warzone, all of these other games are so strong and so competent with their live services that it's just going to push that team to start making those heavy changes. Otherwise, they said this in a kind of positive way in their meeting around investors, that Battlefield's only 10% of how much money we're bringing into the company. It's like, that's because you didn't really invest into it very well, and you've been very incompetent with it. Obviously, it could be way more, and probably has been more in the past if you look back to something like Battlefield 1 with that massive success.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, the last few years, obviously, it would have dropped off quite a bit with even just Battlefield 5, and even like the end of Battlefield 1, the live service slowed down a bit, so it's really been in decline since, what's that, like 2017-ish? Nearly 5 years now.
Ever since Battlefront 2.
Yeah, that's quite a coincidence there.
Interesting. So yeah, I mean, it's very good to hear. But again, it's at this point, it's just words. It's just words until we see that effort and that. I mean, we won't see. Again, we've said this on the podcast. We won't see the benefits and the fruits of this labor until the next Battlefield game, and maybe not even then, if they're already starting to work on it. Or honestly, it's probably going to be delayed because of all of the massive reshakes with rethinking how DICE has been developing games over the last few. I mean, honestly, since Battlefield 1, so that was 2015 or 2016, since then, they've been doing things the same way and have been getting worse and worse at it. So to go through and rework things from the ground up is very good news.
Yeah, I think that has been...
But we won't see it, yeah.
Their issue is that they just have been stuck in their ways. I think you've said this a few times, that they are making games as if it's like 2010, like they're still stuck in that sort of Battlefield 3 and 4 time period where this is how games were back then. Obviously, I guess 2042 has slightly evolved with like adding a battle pass, and they've tried out the specialists. They've tried a little bit of a change there, but it's still, I don't know, there's still a lot of stuff they're doing that's, they're not like evolving as fast as the rest of the gaming, or I guess the FPS genre is. And I think, like you said, reworking it and like fully stepping back and just going, okay, like let's look bigger picture, let's look at every other game and not just like copy what they're doing, because then by the time you actually put that into place, it's 3 years old. You know what I mean? If they copy Modern Warfare 2 that comes out this year, well, by the time that game comes out, it'll be like 2025, and then that is now an old like way of making games. So I think they need to look back.
What is it? Hit where the ball's going.
Yeah.
Instead of where it's been.
Yeah, exactly. They need to like really genuinely analyze the way that the industry's been going, and not try and like plan for where it is now, but plan for where they think it will be in 3 years. And they probably should honestly get some like outside help with genuinely analyzing the whole industry and just seeing what they think works, because other games have done,
they need to start innovating.
Yeah, exactly.
They need to start innovating instead of, oh, hey, we hear this is popular, let's throw it in there. Oh, hey, this is popular, let's throw this in there. Hey, this is popular, let's throw this in there. And are we going to change anything of how the game works? No. It's just going to keep on going, making games how you've been for the past 30 years. And just just throw a battle pass over it. It's like, who cares?
Yeah, that's the issue, isn't it? That they have on paper, you could say they have evolved a little bit, but it's not the areas that it needs to. Like,
they've
devolved.
I do
agree. Yeah, I do agree. Stuff like a battle pass and all that, and potentially, I think what they tried with Hazard Zone was a good idea. I don't think it wasn't.
They fire zoned it.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't really execute on that, but there's certain things they've done that I think should carry over. Like, I think the next game should still have a battle pass and all that kind of thing, but yeah, they're not focusing on the areas that it needs to be changed in. They're kind of focusing on, they're almost at a typical EA thing they're doing is like, they're more just looking at evolving it in terms of money. They don't really seem to be involving it in terms of the gameplay side of things. So yeah, I really hope that Vince can kind of stand up to that, because we've seen, like, it seems like DICE doesn't have the balls to stand up and say, no, this won't work. They kind of seem like they just do whatever EA says, whereas it seems like Vince, if they say, oh, you need to do this, this, and this to make sure we earn our money, it seems like Vince will literally just say, well, no, I'm not doing that. So,
well, Vince knows that he can get a job literally anywhere else and be probably even more successful than he is at EA.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the thing.
And
that's
EA knows
the other
that
thing
too.
For them, I hope they know that. I hope that they know we cannot lose this guy. If he goes back to Call of Duty, that's a huge loss for them. Like, that's potentially the worst possible thing that could happen, is losing the guy that they need to be working on this to their number one rival. So they need to listen to what he says. He knows game dev better than EA. Anyone at EA, I can guarantee that, because they're all suits. They're all very smart businessmen and businesswomen, but they're not game developers. They don't develop games. They publish games. They need to listen to the actual devs, and he's the one who knows what he's doing.
Exactly, and it perfectly ties into our next topic, which is another report from Battlefield Bulletin this time. EA expects the Battlefield franchise to continue to grow and be an important part of EA's portfolio for many, many years to come. Q4 fiscal year 2022. This is both a good and a bad thing, kind of tying in what we were just talking about. EA looking at the opportunity of money is not always like, oh boy, here they come. They're going to start putting in their fingers. But with that kind of filter of Vince Zampella and Rebecca Kutaz and all of these people that they've been putting in, the Marcus Leto, all of these people that have been starting putting together these new changes, and a lot of the old guard, for better and for worse, are leaving DICE. I can totally see seeing that refresh and that strength of management and that strength of direction coming to a great place ultimately. And the way that the Battlefield franchise is going to continue to grow and be an important part of EA's portfolio is for the games to do well. Good games sell, and good games make you money and keep people there.
Yeah, and that's like the key balance they need to get, is they need to, they sound like they want to keep supporting Battlefield and investing in that franchise, which is good, but they need to not, like you said, they need to not put their hands in it too much. They need to essentially put up the money and say, like, we're going to invest in it and hand it over to Vince and the team and let them make a good game. They don't need to focus on money. I don't know how many times we've had this exact conversation. Make a good game, and if it has to be set up to monetize well. If they have no monetization, it doesn't matter how good it is, they won't make their money and the game will eventually fail. But if you have the monetization there, the only thing that matters in terms of, like, will it sell or not, is the game good or not. That is just so simple. It's the most simple equation of all time. Make good things and people buy them. So hopefully they've just said in that investors call that they see it growing and being an important part of their portfolio. That's good. Invest in it, but don't try and control it, because they have shown that they can't. When they're the ones making decisions, for example, not delaying 2042 for another year, it just doesn't work out.
I mean, a lot of the issues just in general at EA is they are heavily focused on releasing a game in a set time period versus releasing a game. I mean, we saw this with Squadrons. Squadrons was originally planned to be a full release title. It was going to be $60 and they wanted to plan a lot more with it, but EA saw, hey, this is good enough. Let's just charge $40 for it and push it out so we have a game in this quarter. Yeah. Doesn't really matter that it wasn't intended to be there. Or, I mean, in the past, certain games it's been reported a couple times that certain games have been canceled or put on hold indefinitely because they weren't going to hit a certain time frame versus actually saying, oh, hey, we want to get a Star Wars game out. Period. Okay, well, let's give the time that they need to make a Star Wars game that's going to do well and then release it when we're ready to. No, they're like, oh, well, they aren't making good enough progress. Can that process and put it on something else.
Yeah, it's a very frustrating situation that, like, it feels like they don't, to them, games are just, it's all a business. It's not, they don't see, like, the art of it. They don't see making a good game. They don't care if it's good. They just want it to launch and to be marketed well that it gets enough pre-orders. After that, it seems like they don't really care that much, and that's their biggest downfall. There's a lot of other companies out there that they clearly, their sole focus is to make good stuff, and they know that will sell. And if you make a really good game and it might not meet the sales numbers you wanted or whatever, but when it's like reviewed really, really well, those type of games then set themselves up for the future. Look at a game like Titanfall. They didn't sell all that well, but everyone who played them loved them, and now it's turned into Apex. So, like, it doesn't always have to be, they could release the next Battlefield game and it might not hit their numbers that they want. But if it's really good, I can assure you the next one will sell really, really well, and that's how you grow a really stable franchise. It's just mad to me that they don't know that. Like, Titanfall's their own franchise, and they can't even see that. So it's a little bit frustrating.
But they shot themselves in the foot with Titanfall as well. The reason that Titanfall 2 didn't go as well as they had hoped is because they released Titanfall 2 and Battlefield 1 in the same, what was it, a couple weeks away from each other?
Yeah, something ridiculous. And I think even their time for this is actually perfect to what you were just saying, where they're so set on the dates. Even Titanfall 1, I think, I could be wrong, but I know that launched in the same year that, like, Battlefield and Call of Duty both released bangers. It must have been Battlefield 4, and I don't know what year that would have been for COD, but they released that in a year when it was, like, obviously not going to do well because it was pretty much jammed in between the two biggest games of the year. So again, like you said, they seem to just be like, this is the date we're launching and I don't care what happens, that's when it comes out, and that's just the end of it. They need to, like, imagine with Titanfall, if they went, okay, that might not be the best launch period, why don't we delay it by a year and really invest into it, and the next year it comes out and it would have been the biggest shooter of the year, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's a very good point that you made, that they're just so set in their ways of, like, this is when it launches, and there is no movement. It's just, that's set in stone.
What's ridiculous is the EA looks at something like Respawn and how incredibly well Apex Legends is doing, and the process and the things that are doing well over there, and then they do nothing with that information and are like, Battlefield, yo, bro, hey, come over. Yeah, see Apex? Yeah, do that. Well, how do we do that? I don't know, just do it. But also don't do it that way or that way. Do it this way. If that's not the way Apex is doing. No. Do it this way.
Oh, it's ridiculous, man.
I mean, if you look at Respawn, kind of tying that conversation in, you look at Respawn and you look at how nimble they have been. They can go from storytelling to first-person shooter to live service within the span of like 5 years. Titanfall, like you said, they were incredibly well-reviewed and beloved games. They didn't do very well in terms of sales, but they have a huge rabid fan base, and they are honestly some of the best shooters ever. Like, just the gameplay feel of Titanfall 1 and 2 is just chef's kiss. Incredibly, incredibly good games.
Yeah.
But if you look at something like that, they noticed, hey, we're going to keep on making these games, and we're going to keep on getting screwed by EA. Let's switch things up, and let's just make a game we want to play and then release it without any marketing because EA's not going to give us any marketing. Yeah. And we're going to make one of the most successful titles EA has ever made in the last 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, that
outside
the way
of sports.
You put that is actually ridiculous, isn't it? Like, at the end of the day, they almost should have let Titanfall die because it didn't perform, and so EA essentially were like, that franchise isn't very good. But Respawn was like, no, those are good games, and we like that. We're going to make another one, but it's going obviously it's a different title and different style. And they did it, and it is now. I would imagine, I don't know the numbers over FIFA. I didn't listen to the earnings call the other day, but I'd imagine Apex is probably pushing FIFA for number one
just
EA game.
The fact that we're wondering if they're even close to each other is indicative of how good those games are at bringing in money.
Yeah.
I mean, historically, it was always sports games and Sims, and then as soon as Apex came in, it was like, oh, hey, we're having this discussion now. Apex is in the ring.
Yeah. And the thing with it is it's here to stay. I don't see it. It's not like a flash in the pan, just going to be good for a year. It's actually been through its time where it actually kind of dropped off a little bit, and it pretty much rebuilt itself on the go. Like it had I think it had like 3 or 4 seasons there where it kind of dropped off and it wasn't getting as much love, and it could have easily just dropped off. And again, maybe EA would have made that decision and gone, that we'll move on, make a new one, make Apex 2 or something. And Respawn just dug down and went, no, we're just going to, like, the next season we do is going to be massive, and we're going to we're going to do the mobile game, we're going to do all this stuff, and now it's back number one again. So, like, just they need to just watch Respawn and just learn how to do that, because, and like, they did kind of say that in the thing the other day, that they're using that model to kind of fix the issues with Battlefield. So again, that's very promising to hear, but talk is cheap. We have to wait until we see it. But yeah, with Vince on board, I'm more leaning to the side of I think it will happen than it won't, because they've got the man in charge that they need, and as long as they're willing to back him in, then until he fails, I won't ever question him, really, because he's batting 100 at the moment. He's never had a game that's been bad. So,
dude, Vince, what a legend!
My boy, Vince.
True legend in the game.
Yep.
A question for you, just kind of tying this in. Let's just say in the near future we get a free-to-play Battlefield game, which I think totally could work, can work, and they should do at least a part of it should be free-to-play. We're seeing that a rise in that side of things in the whole of gaming. Where do you see that connection? Because I heard there was a comment months ago, but just comes to mind. Someone in the comment section was like, I think the reason that we aren't getting a free-to-play Battlefield game is because there's Apex, and EA doesn't want to cannibalize that. But I think at this point, like, there's rising and fallings of free-to-play games. They come in and out of fashion. And I think there is enough room for Battlefield to be in the ring as well. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, like, especially after their last few games, that is a really easy way to sort of win back the trust. If you release a really good free game, that's an instant, like, people will instantly trust them again. Obviously, with EA, it's always a little bit of a weird trust. It's like, yeah, I trust you for now, but I'm not, not holding on hope forever. But I think that would be a really good decision.
Fool me 3 times.
Yeah.
Besides.
But yeah, we've seen it, time and time again, that those free games that get the support, like you said, there's a lot of free games that don't really pan out and stuff like that. But it seems like I don't really know if we've seen a big AAA game that's been free actually fail yet. I could be wrong, but I don't feel like there's been any. The ones we've seen are like Fortnite, which I don't even know at the time if you would call that AAA, but now it is.
Yeah.
Like Warzone.
I think the
Apex.
closest thing is it hasn't failed yet. They're still putting investment into it, but Halo Infinite's really rough right now.
Yeah, that's true. But also, I guess that's a little different because it's one of like the OG franchises plus it's exclusive. So I guess you give that a little bit of leeway. But that is a good point. That's it like launched really well and it's like a good game. I think the issues there are more to do with like the live service side of things. But
yeah,
and maybe that's where it can go wrong. Maybe they didn't earn enough because it was free that they can't invest in it properly. So
I highly doubt that. I mean, if 2 people bought those customizations in the store, I mean, that paid for all of the development.
That's a good point, actually.
They definitely made their money. I don't think they put the investment as much as they had hoped or realized they needed into the expectations of a live service free-to-play game.
Yeah. That's a weird one to watch with Halo because it launched so well and it just looked like it was going to be... I thought that was going to be around for 5 years, being like up in the top 5 for most played every year kind of thing. And I still think it can. It's just obviously in a bit of a rough spot. But yeah, that is a weird one to watch. So I guess, like you said, there is always the potential that happens, and that that after this, that could be the end of Battlefield. If they release a free game and it just doesn't go well either, then yeah, maybe that's the end. So I can understand that maybe they've got like some reservations against doing it, but I just don't see. I really don't see it failing as long as it's monetized well and they can commit to putting in, getting out heaps of content and all that kind of thing. I just think removing that risk of, like with 2042, after the first week, a lot of people were like, nah, I'm not even going to bother buying that because everyone's saying it is just really bad. But if it's free, people would still download it, and especially with, right now, for example, the game has picked up a bit of traction with the last update. This is the time when, if this game was free, there'd be a big influx of players right now, but because it's still behind that paywall, the update was really good. I haven't seen any more populated lobbies than they were before because that's still behind that paywall. So yeah, I'm really for the free. Like, I think free games are the way of the future. Really, I think that's the best for both. Both sides of it. The consumer has a free thing that there's no risk with, and it's been proven in the numbers that the company making it, they're not losing money. Those games make billions. Like, literally, just look at Apex. You only need one example. There's obviously many examples out there, but that's just one within the same company that is making billions from not only a free game, but it didn't even have a trailer. It just dropped. They were like, yeah, by the way, this game's out. So I don't really see the downside to it, but whether it happens, I don't know, just because, like we said earlier, they're very stuck in their ways, and yeah, I don't know. Even with, Hazard Zone wasn't free. Even that just makes it go, they just don't want to have a free element. They made the same mistake twice with Firestorm and Hazard Zone. So whether they would, if they're not going to do that with Hazard Zone, I'm not sure they would take the step and do it with a full game, if you know what I mean. So it's a weird one, but I'm definitely, in terms of my thoughts, I'm definitely all for it.
Yeah, I'm again, I've said this a few times in the past. Like, I'm 100% all on board for a free-to-play Battlefield game. They just need to make sure that they go into it with, like, what is the way that we can pair Battlefield with the free-to-play elements? What are the ways that we can add to this space and innovate within it instead of just doing what has been done? What are the ways that we can push this forward and really nail the Battlefield feel and pair these things very well?
Yeah, 100%. I think it'll be tough, but it'll be doable. So hopefully they, entertain that thought. Whether they do, I'm not really sure. But I guess also with Vince on board, like, he's probably the man lobbying for that with Apex as the prime example. So hopefully it happens, but I guess we'll have to wait and see, won't we?
Mm-hmm. Soon, hopefully. But we'll definitely keep our eyes out on it and expect as soon as this podcast gets your ears that DICE has announced the specialist feedback loop, whatever it's called. But if they do, we'll cover it on the next episode. So make sure you're subscribed for free wherever you find podcasts, or check out our YouTube channels for even deeper dives onto all the things Battlefield. Anyway, thank you all so much for listening. Thank you, Ethan Clark, for the beautiful thumbnail, and we'll see you all on the battlefield.